I remember the exact moment the invitation arrived. It was thick, expensive, cream-colored paper with gold lettering pressed so deeply it left shadows when you tilted it under the light. Anyone else would have felt proud holding it. My son's wedding. A milestone. A reward for decades of sacrifice. But something in my chest tightened before I even opened it. The envelope was addressed formally. My full name, no mom, no warmth. That should have been my first clue. I had paid for nearly everything. The venue overlooking the river. The caterer everyone was raving about before the day even arrived. The band. The floral arches. Even part of the honeymoon fund, quietly transferred so no one would feel awkward. I never asked for recognition. I never wanted a speech. I just assumed I would be included. When I finally unfolded the invitation, I noticed what wasn't there before I noticed what was. No mention of seating. No family table note. No reassurance. Just a time, a place, and a request to RSVP online. I brushed it off. You're overthinking, I told myself, the way mothers always do when they sense trouble but don't want to believe it. The weeks before the wedding passed in a blur of last-minute payments and polite phone calls. My son was distant. Busy, he said. Stressed. His fiancée was polite but cold. Her voice clipped like every conversation was a task she wanted finished quickly. I tried once, just once, to ask about seating. Oh, don't worry, my son said, laughing lightly. It's all taken care of. Those words would echo in my head later. The morning of the wedding, I arrived early. I had dressed carefully, not to outshine anyone, but not to disappear either. Soft colors. Elegant. Respectful. I wanted to look like I belonged there. The venue was stunning. Sunlight danced across white linens. Glassware chimed softly as staff set tables. Guests filtered in, smiling, laughing, hugging one another like they were part of something special. I stood there alone for several minutes, clutching my purse, scanning the room for a familiar face. No one waved. No one approached. Finally, a young coordinator with a clipboard smiled tightly and asked my name. She scanned her list once. Then again. Oh, she said. That single word carried more weight than a paragraph. You're over here. She led me past the central tables. Past the family section. Past the front rows with perfect views of the couple's table. We walked farther and farther until the music sounded muffled and the laughter dulled. Then she stopped. There, she said, pointing. It was a small table. 2 chairs. Positioned near a swinging door that opened directly into the kitchen. Every time it moved, a burst of heat and clatter spilled out. Metal trays, shouted instructions, the hiss of burners. I looked around, waiting for the punchline. This is my seat, I asked. She nodded, already stepping away. Enjoy the ceremony. I sat down slowly. And in that moment, something inside me went very still. People assume humiliation looks dramatic. Tears. Shaking hands. A visible reaction. But real humiliation is quiet. It's sitting at a table where no one joins you. It's smiling politely when waitstaff brush past you like you're part of the furniture. It's realizing, slowly, painfully, that this wasn't a mistake. This was intentional. From my seat, I could see the backs of people's heads. I couldn't hear the vows clearly, just fragments drifting through the air between kitchen noise and applause. When everyone laughed, I laughed a second too late, pretending I knew why. No one came to check on me. Not my son. Not his bride. Not a single relative. I watched as plates I had paid for were served to tables I wasn't welcome at. I watched as glasses I had financed were raised in toasts I wasn't invited to hear. And still, I smiled. Because something else was happening beneath that calm exterior. I was calculating. I remembered every transfer. Every receipt. Every, I'll handle it, Mom. I remembered the bank confirmations, the checks, the quiet generosity that had suddenly turned me into an inconvenience. Halfway through dinner, the kitchen door slammed so hard it rattled my silverware. A server muttered an apology and rushed past. That's when I realized something crucial. No one was watching me. And that gave me freedom. I reached into my purse and pulled out my phone. My hands didn't shake. My heart didn't race. It was as if the humiliation had burned everything unnecessary away, leaving only clarity. I opened my banking app. The honeymoon fund? Still untouched. The vendor deposits? Some were refundable until midnight. The final payment for the band was scheduled for the next morning. I didn't rush. I quietly cancelled the honeymoon transfer. I paused the final payment. I initiated reversals where I could and documented everything else. Each tap felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. When dessert was served, someone finally noticed me. An aunt I barely recognized paused, glanced at my table, and frowned. "Oh," she said. "I didn't realize you were seated here." I smiled warmly. "Neither did I." She hesitated, clearly uncomfortable, then walked away. By the time the music grew louder and people moved to the dance floor, I had finished. I stood up, smoothed my dress, and took one last look at the room I had paid to exist. Then I walked out through the same kitchen door they had placed me beside. No scene. No tears. No goodbyes. Just silence. I was halfway home when my phone buzzed for the first time. I didn't answer. The second call came minutes later. Then a message. "Mom, where did you go?" I kept driving. By the time I reached my house, there were 6 missed calls and a voicemail I didn't listen to. I made tea. I changed into something comfortable. I sat at my kitchen table, the one where my son used to do homework while I cooked dinner and dreamed of his future. Only now, the dreams felt distant, dim. The next morning, the calls came again. Louder. More frantic. That's when I finally answered. "Why did you leave?" my son demanded, not concern but irritation sharpening his voice. People noticed. I waited a beat before responding. "Did they?" There was silence. Then, "What do you mean?" "I mean," I said calmly, "did you notice where you put me?" He sighed. "Mom, it was just seating. You're being dramatic." That word, dramatic, was the final confirmation I needed. "I cancelled the honeymoon fund," I said softly, and paused the remaining payments. The silence this time was different. "You what?" "I took back what I gave," I continued, "without a scene. Just like you arranged for me." The call exploded after that. Accusations. Shuck. His wife's voice in the background, sharp and panicked. Suddenly, they cared. "You embarrassed us," he said. I smiled, even though he couldn't see it. "No," I replied. "I embarrassed no one. I simply stopped paying to be invisible." They asked me to reconsider, to understand, to be the bigger person. I declined. Because for the first time, I finally understood something they never would. Respect isn't demanded. It's demonstrated. Weeks passed. The story shifted depending on who told it. Some said I overreacted. Others whispered about the seating choice and quietly agreed I'd been wronged. I didn't correct anyone. I didn't need to. The money I reclaimed wasn't just financial. It was symbolic. It was proof that generosity without boundaries becomes permission for disrespect. My son visited once. He stood awkwardly in my doorway, eyes uncertain, pride bruised. "I didn't think it mattered," he said. I nodded. "That's the problem," I replied. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't list my sacrifices. I didn't beg for an apology. I simply lived. And that, more than anything, changed the power dynamic forever. Because the woman they hid by the kitchen? She didn't cause a scene. She didn't cry publicly. She didn't fight. She walked away with her dignity intact, and every cent she chose to reclaim. And that silence. That was the loudest lesson of all.